Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Interestingly, today is World Blood Donor Day, a day dedicated to raise awareness, public awareness when it comes to the necessity of donating blood, and for people to also understand that it's important for us to be blood donors. I can't remember the last time I had to do that, but I think if my memory serves me right, I did that 2 years ago for my brother-in-law, and but it's a day to draw attention to that for people to understand the importance of donating blood, not just about just donating blood, but save blood. That's the word save, the safety of it, and for people to understand how important it is to save our society, because when it comes to blood, it's about life.
Oh, yes. And given the global blood deficit of over 30 million pounds, according to study, it is important on this day to celebrate those who are voluntary donors, those who have gone to a hospital, gone to a lab to say they want to voluntarily donate blood, and also to encourage others towards safe blood donation. That's why we're having this conversation this morning with Dr. Lubanjo, who's joining us virtually this morning. Good morning. Welcome to Red Exchange.
Good morning. I hope this is clear enough.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for having me this morning.
On a day like this, when the world shifts attention to safe blood donation and talks about blood donors, thanking them for what they've done to save lives, let's look at the issue of blood donation, beginning from home, Nigeria. What's the situation like having voluntary donors?
Well, I think we can start it off with the question of when last did you donate blood? And you probably won't give me a recent answer. If I heard correctly, probably was talking about 2 years ago. And the truth is, 2 years ago, Femi was donating for a loved one that he knew. And what we're really asking for, or what voluntary blood donation is about donating to people you don't even know. So I salute Femi for donating, but he had to donate as he did simply because there wasn't enough blood in the first place. So what you find is that in many hospitals, when there's a need for blood transfusion for a loved one, they ask you to go bring your loved ones to donate blood for you. And that's because we don't have enough blood at all. So ordinarily, what should happen is that this patient A needs blood. We go to the blood bank and we get the blood. And we just give the person the blood. That's all. We don't need to tell you, bring 3 relatives, bring 4 relatives. So when that is happening, it's a sure sign that there is just not enough blood. That's not to take away from the heroic donation that he did, because again, some people struggle for days and days to get anybody to donate at all. But what blood donation, what the drive is about getting people to donate voluntarily and regularly. And we don't have that, in country. So the demand far outweighs the supply. That's the situation.
All right, Dr. Lubanjo, glad to see you again. Your earlier comment, you take it up as a challenge, and maybe I might do that soon, perhaps after this program. But now let
me say something to you right there,
of why most Nigerians might not want to voluntarily donate blood. And I'll also put the second aspect to it, that how often should we donate blood?
Well, so the first one is, why don't people donate blood? We actually had a workshop some years ago, 2006, I think it was, on blood donation. And one of the comments that stayed with me from then is somebody who said, this is a country that's taken everything from me. Now you want my blood also? I can't give you my blood as well. But it's not about the country. The blood is really about us as people. So the reason why people don't give the blood is that they don't understand what that need is and how serious that need is. And the fact that we all might end up needing that service sometime, someday. If we don't need it personally, our loved one might need it. So the blood demands are for certain situations, like when women deliver babies, they tend to have a lot of bleeding around that period, around that event, and that, I mean, places a demand on blood. So again, of course, that's not even talking about if you have a cesarean section. I'm talking about normal delivery. One of the common complications is post-delivery bleeding that is quite heavy. So you can have, we're in a malaria society where people have malaria often. So children, especially adults, elderly people, you can have a lot of anemia, which is what we commonly would just say they said the person's blood was low. But what it is the blood count, the red blood cell count. So you need blood transfusion. Of course, we have trauma. We have trauma. All this violence we're talking about means that a lot of people are ending up in hospitals needing treatment, and one of those is blood transfusion. We have road traffic accident. So as I'm saying those things, you can see that none of us really is excluded from the possibility of needing this either for ourselves or for our loved ones. So if people understood that what we're then doing, and that's why we talk about a blood bank. So the idea of a blood bank is just like a bank, the economic banks of. So we are saving up the blood for when it's needed. It might be needed by you, it might be needed by a loved one, but all of us are making donations to that bank so that bank has the blood when that blood is needed. So that's the key thing. So the second thing therefore follows with it, which is how regularly. One would say ordinarily every 6 months you can donate blood. But it also, of course, when you also talk about blood, like you rightly said at the start of the program, we are talking about safe blood, meaning that if you are saying every 6 months, we are assuming that you are in good health. We are assuming that you live in a healthy manner. So if anything threatens your health, then you can't donate blood. You may not be able to donate blood because you come first. So first we need to be sure that you are fine and healthy enough so that the blood donation doesn't become detrimental to your health at all. But any normal healthy person can donate something as every 6 months. But then also we want to be sure that first it's not damaging to you, but secondly we want to be sure that it's safe blood that you are getting. And that's the emphasis on that voluntary blood donors, because there are blood donors that will come to you and say, hey, they are willing to donate blood if you pay them money. The problem with that is that it raises, it rings an alarm bell that this person probably doesn't live in a very healthy manner. Maybe he's a drug addict, so he needs money to feed that habit. But that habit itself makes him a high-risk candidate who we may not want blood from because that blood may not be safe. Thank you.
According to World Health Organization, WHO, Nigeria needs annually about 1.8 million pints of blood, but the country only collects about 500,000 pints of blood. And from the conditions that you've mentioned, necessitating blood transfusion, it shows there's a great need for blood in Nigerian hospitals and blood banks. So, which is sometimes brought about the case of paid blood donors. Has that effort going, and what kinds of results has it produced over the years? Has it been able to close the gap in some way?
Well, like I said, there's quite some risk with paid blood donation, which is that once you introduce payments, actually, almost into any service, then you get it becomes an all-commerce affair. So for you to get up and just walk down, the road or wherever, drive down and go to a blood bank and say, I want to donate blood. It's probably because it speaks a bit to your health, because if you are not healthy, you probably don't want to do that. It speaks probably to your personality as well, for you to want to do that. So it gives us a picture of who you might be. I'm not saying that there won't be any screening and all that, there will be, but it gives automatically a picture of who you might be, and the chances that the blood that will be gotten from you is unsafe is much reduced just by the fact that you were a voluntary donor. Now, if you introduce payment, of course, it doesn't mean that everybody who gets paid, the blood is unsafe, but it just raises that risk. It raises that risk of why would anybody be doing this just to get paid? So whoever is doing this just to get paid, is there something else about him or her that we do not know and we should be aware about and we should be careful about? So again, the blood will be safe, but the chances are that you'll get a lot more people, or there'll be a bigger percentage of that blood that is not going to be safe. So yes, when the need is as drastic as you have described, the statistics show us. Then you might have to do put in drastic measures, paid donors, this, that. But your index of suspicion in terms of safe or unsafe blood needs to also increase along with that, as well as your processing protocols to ensure that you do not, bank up all kinds of unsafe blood. Thank you.
All right. I would like to find out your observation as regards the level of public awareness when it comes to blood donation and what can be done on a day like this and even after now to encourage people to engage in voluntary blood donations.
Well, your guess is as good as mine, but it probably says to us that people don't know this. People don't think about it. Who wakes up and is thinking about how am I going to give my blood today? How do I give my blood this month? Rarely. And if you ask, I've not had that conversation with any friend in the last 6 months, 1 year. I don't remember anybody who sat down with me and the discussion was, how do I donate my blood? Why should I donate my blood? So it just doesn't come up. And it doesn't come up because we don't have enough awareness of, the need for this. And that we need to do. So I salute you for even featuring this on your program today. I salute you for shining the light on it, because every little helps. The gap that needs to be covered is very huge. So everything that can be done by everybody, all media channels need to feature something about it. Not just today actually, but quite regularly, because like I said, this is something that is needed. The blood is needed often. And then no donors. There's just a huge gap. So we need to keep drumming it into people's ears, and of course, addressing along the line some of their concerns. So first you point out the needs to people, and show them that need might become their need. Personally, it might touch them personally sometime soon. So that is whether they would need it or a loved one they know would need it. We need to point it out that this is something that we all sometime in our life might have to deal with. So even though I've not had that casual conversation with a friend, sooner or later somebody is going to have a relative in the hospital, and that conversation is going to come up. Oh, they asked us to go and get blood. Oh, they asked us to find people to donate blood. Oh, so that conversation is going to come up. When that conversation comes up, it has become personal for that person. So we need to tell them that we need to, in quote, prepare for war in the time of peace. So we need to get these things done now. We need to make it a lifestyle, especially for all the good people who are also healthy by the grace of God. They need to start thinking about this, that, okay, for instance, you can say to yourself, every birthday of mine, every year, I'm going to donate blood. So that's a kind of way to situate it in your life such that you do not forget that part of my birthday celebration is blood donation. So every time that birthday comes around or is coming around, you start thinking about it. Oh, I made a promise that I was going to donate blood, every birthday. In fact, over time, the blood bank there you would know, and they will expect you. They might even have your details. If you told them, please even remind me, they might ring you up and say, hey, happy birthday, in advance. When are you coming in? So we just need to be creative and find ways to get people to put this as a priority. Thank you.
What can you say about some factors that may make it not to be a common practice for people to just on their own walk into a hospital to say they want to donate blood, aside not being aware of the importance?
I think also fair. Fair. So people think they take my blood, what's going to be left? How do I survive? So that's one factor is that people are afraid. But you have enough blood, and not only so, the body would regenerate the blood. So whatever is taken out, it's going to be regenerated in due time. And yes, we did talk about the fact that you should be healthy for two reasons. One, blood donation ordinarily is very safe, so that's not a concern. But if you felt unwell, at that point in time, then it's not advisable because you don't even know for sure what's happening to you and what the impact might be. And secondly, you don't even know what's going on inside of you, so you don't want to donate blood that might be unsafe at that point in time. Okay, but people are afraid that, oh, this is going to damage me and all that. Ordinarily, blood donation is very safe. You'll be okay. That blood will be regenerated. That's why you can go back and keep donating and keep donating, especially between the ages of 18 and 60 to 65. So that's acceptable. You can donate all through that period, keep coming back. It's all welcome and good. So that's fine. So fear is one of them. The other one is when people start thinking, Nigeria is so tough. Nigeria is, I'm my own local government chairman. I provide my electricity. I provide my water. I provide everything. Now they want to take my blood. I can't give Nigeria my blood as well. Then you need to also realize that it's not Nigeria. Whatever that Nigeria is to you, that's taking your blood is actually something for yourself and humanity. So it's not whatever your sentiments about the country are. It's not about that. It's about the fact that you would be saving your life and the life of a loved one, now or in the future. So those are the things that people worry about, I think, in my view, that we should start dispelling and explaining and help them to process it differently, so that they can, really become voluntary donors.
The blood donation, does gender matter? The rate at which a man can donate blood, is it any different from that of a woman?
No, it doesn't matter. I think women they look more, they even look, bigger and better skin and all that. So maybe their blood is even better. I'm just joking about that. Just kidding about that, really. But the truth is that both can donate equally. There are parameters, though, like I said, if you do go into donate blood, that are going to be assessed. And some of those parameters might differ for a man apart from a woman. So, for instance, the key one is that they will look at your red blood cell count, basically. That PCV thing that most people are familiar with it as PCV. So they will look at that. The count generally for women is different from men. So it means that the baseline they would expect for you before they would allow you to donate will be different from what they will take for a man. Okay, but otherwise, there are really no real differences. Both can donate, as often as determined to be healthy.
All right, let's focus on the health benefits of blood donation now. Let's start from the person donating the blood, the donor, and also the receiver. And perhaps if there are hazards associated with this, we'd like you to educate us on this.
Well, on a good day, really, what you might call the major benefits, in terms of health, would perhaps be even your psychological or mental well-being, if you ask me. What do I mean? Because when human beings are not made ordinarily just to be selfish. We are made to also be able to be productive, be beneficial to other people. That's why we work. We don't just work, for instance, just for money. We work also because of its, benefits to us, even psychologically, and all of that. So it's not just the salary you get that makes you go to work. And I keep joking with people that what happens if you were paid not to work? You are paid not to work, just sit down, don't do anything, but report there and sit down. You'll find that it's not as beneficial, but that attitude of feeling that, I am making a difference. I have, I've impacted lives. I've that altruism, it's a major part of humans. It's a major part of what we all love to see. The other thing also, of course, is that when you do donate blood, like I said, there's some processing. So that processing by itself is that you get it enables or it ensures that you get some kind of physical, what you call a physical, basically what you call a health examination. So the mere fact that you go there, you walk into the um, blood bank and you say, I want to donate, they're going to have to do some examination. So many of us don't do routine health examinations, even as simple as a blood pressure measurement. But when you walk in, they're going to do those things. So you get that benefit. Something might be picked up that you would not have known about just by the fact that you went to donate blood. So that also becomes a benefit. Some studies are linking regular donation to a lower blood pressure, and also the fact that you might be reducing the risk of heart attacks and strokes and some of those other conditions. But like I said, it gives you that psychological feeling, that good feeling, which by no means can be underestimated. Of feeling that I'm doing good for humanity, that's very important. And then, of course, it has some of these benefits for even your blood. Some it's been linked to lower blood pressure, reduction in risk of stroke and things like that. But also you get the benefits actually of being seen, in a health facility and some health checks being done. So when you walk away, oh, I know what my blood pressure is. Oh, I know they did this test. I was fine. I'm healthy. So those are benefits that you get from voluntary blood donation.
Let's take a look at the cost of blood in hospitals when patients need to be transfused. How affordable is it in Nigeria?
Well, I must tell you that I don't have the current prices, but also prices vary depending on where you are and depending on the availability of blood where you are. So, but the major cost, of course, the issue also is that the cost will depend on how readily we get donors in that area, in that facility, in that vicinity. If you have a lot of donors, so for instance, you gave us figures earlier on 1.8 million liters needed. We have only 500,000 liters. Now, if you are in a place where, let's say, you needed 100,000 liters every year, and all you have is 10,000 liters. So if you remember the way things are, demand and supply, the price is likely to be higher, of getting a blood transfusion than if you're in a place where you need 100,000 liters, just similarly, but you have as much as 80,000 available. Then mainly the cost you'll be putting on top will just be your cost of processing, cost of maintaining the facility, but in the other place, simply because of the demand outstripping the supply, you are likely to get a higher cost. So it's thousands of naira, and it's not very affordable. I struggle with that word because I'm thinking to myself, what is very affordable? What is affordable now to many of us, even us, what's really affordable? That's very difficult and very objective. Yeah, very subjective rather. So it's expensive. Let me put it that way. You don't want to be in the need. Healthcare generally is expensive, and you don't want to be in a situation where you have the need. Some people, for instance, also would need to be transfused with 2 pints, as we would describe it, which is like 2 bags of blood, while somebody else is in a situation is getting that 2 bags every 2 days. This one person gets 2 bags once and that's it. So you might say, oh, they spent 20,000 giving him 2 bags. But if you needed 2 bags every 2 days and you are there for 1 month, that whole cost has changed significantly. It's still 20,000 for the 2 bags, but you are spending 20,000 every 2 days. So that's a lot of money. So but then we can bring down the price almost to just the price or the cost of processing and the cost of maintaining the blood in a safe state in a blood bank if we had enough donors. So it's one of the other reasons to have the voluntary donors is that we could make the pricing most feasible.
What are the processes that have been put in place to ensure that the cost of blood at the end of the day is not so much out of the reach of the patient who needs it? I'll give you my personal observation. I observed what happened at a teaching hospital in Nigeria. There at that hospital, they had no blood to sell for patients who need. They didn't even have free. But they would recommend to you labs that have blood to sell. And that made it very expensive because you, as the patient, would need to pay the lab for the blood and then pay the hospital again for screening, which makes it as expensive as almost 20,000 naira. Talking about blood management, what kind of processes has the healthcare system in Nigeria put in place to ensure that there is good and effective management of blood collection from the donor and then availability for the patient to make sure that it is not so out of reach?
Okay, so what you'll find in healthcare service is that for the government, it's a social service. Okay, for the private person, it's a business. So forget the fact that you are in distress, you need health care. For any private venture, it's a business still at the end of the day. No matter how compassionate you might be, you still have to stay in business. So you have to be profitable, as it were. Whereas for the government, the thought is not profit. The thought is service. And so once the government has a health facility and all that around you, they try to run on that basis of putting the service first and profitability comes second. So either the profit margin is very slim or non-existent, really, in many instances for government. So as long as what I'm trying to say is that as long as you are having to deal from a private experience with a private venture, with a private blood bank and all that, it's going to be more expensive usually than if the government had its own blood bank in that vicinity. So that's why governments do set up their blood transfusion service. Lagos has that. But the issue is still that the need is still way bigger than the supply is. So you can't have the government facility everywhere. For instance, the government blood banks everywhere. That's difficult. They're trying to achieve all of that. But not only so, even when they do have the blood banks, it doesn't mean that they have the blood because they may not have enough donors. Okay, so it then depends on who has the blood, and of course you know that there are different types in quotes of blood. So when you say you need to transfuse somebody, there are certain specifications. We need blood type this, blood type that. So you may actually even go to a government facility nearby and they don't have it, and then a private facility has it. It's likely that if the government had it, it's likely to be cheaper than if a private facility had it. So those are the issues. So government sets up blood transfusion services in order to ensure that they can manage first the availability and second manage the affordability, for their citizens.
The private labs have the blood, and then the government hospitals or facilities do not have it.
Yeah, well, again, you sorry.
Say about that situation is that the private facilities have blood,
Yeah.
but in government facilities, you don't find blood.
Well, when you put it that way,
I did not find blood in that particular
yeah.
government facility, but several other private facilities had blood to supply to the government facility. What do you make of this situation? What could be wrong?
Well, I think I kind of touched on it a little bit, by mentioning the fact that first there could be just a situation of there are different types of blood. You don't have what you need in this one, and it doesn't mean that you'll find it in every private facility around there. Okay, so you may not also you may have five private facilities and only two have at that point in time. So that's one situation. The other situation also is that the government facility is more likely, to maintain very strict protocols for accepting blood donations, whereas the private facility might actually break certain protocols also, which means that the private facility might be paying people, to come donate blood. Of course, you expect that if they do process the blood right, it will still end up as safe blood, but they are also likely. So if you pick 10 people and you are paying, like I pointed out earlier, you are likely to find maybe three or four who are not qualified, whether by lifestyle or whatever, to donate blood. So you may have to, take that statement and discard, but you have to pay. So that increases the cost of the service. But the government facility would not offer the payment usually. And the government facility will just encourage voluntary blood donation as its mainstay of maintaining supply. So those are issues you may get. Also, sometimes you struggle because we always talk about government not being very good at business. So if you're maintaining a blood bank, for instance, your power supply and all that must be super good. The facilities in the blood bank, the kinds of fridges and things you need must be top notch and working efficiently. The private person will probably ensure that more. So the blood banks most times sit in a hospital, like a teaching hospital, like you said. And we know, even in the news recently, of a teaching hospital where power supply was cut off, for months. So those are the challenges. A private person would not would push to everything, have solar, these have two generators, five generators, because it's business. But it's going to pile all of that price on the client at the end of the day. So you will have to pay more eventually.
Why will encourage people to donate blood? You will notice this trend that for some people who voluntarily do that, some of these blood samples are not being used either immediately or at the moment that are needed. So will this not discourage people who voluntarily donate blood? Or what happens to patients whose families were asked to donate blood, but these samples were not used? Educate us on this.
Well, again, that's why we talk about the concept of the blood bank. Think about it as the bank. If you went to the bank and you find a lot of money is kept in the bank, that you don't use at the moment. You don't use it instantly. So they will declare their closing balance end of the day and all of that, and end of the year and all that. So not all the money in there is used instantly. And what has happened to us is that because we don't have enough blood, we ask people to donate, for a relative. And occasionally, when people then do donate, it's like you may not need the blood, or a decision is made by the physicians, the treating doctors, to say, no, we're not giving this person blood anymore. That shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. We should be happy that we have donated blood anyhow, and we have contributed to saving somebody else. That blood can be kept for a number of days, over a month, at the right temperature, and will probably, most likely, more than likely, will be used for somebody else who might have died if they didn't get blood on time. So there are people who are rushed in, like I said earlier, road traffic accidents, they've been attacked by robbers or whatever, they have bled profusely. You don't even have the time to be looking for the relative to say, get a relative to get two relatives, get four relatives to come and donate blood for him. You have to give blood right there and then. If you don't, or if you can't get the blood, that person is likely to die. So if you happen to have been in a situation, where you had to donate blood for a relative and that blood was not used at the end of the day, you should still take that as a good thing and be happy about it. But know that it's a bank. Blood can be kept for a while. We are asking for voluntary donors, not just donors who donate to a loved one. So my blood must be used for that person. And if the blood isn't used for that person at the end of the day, it also means that that person is getting well, even without it. So we should be glad, grateful, and be happy that we've just contributed to somebody else's well-being.
The World Health Organization, in one of its reports, revealed that blood donation rates in high-income countries are significantly higher than low-income countries. What is the relationship between poverty and blood donation?
I think again that takes reiterating what I said earlier, which is the first is the awareness. So education, how educated and health aware people are determines, whether they do these kinds of things. The second thing, of course, is that if you are busy looking for, how to make ends meet, I'm not going to be thinking about donating blood. Just the same way that it's just a tiny fraction of Nigerians who are thinking about how to go and climb a mountain, and all that. We don't think about those things. You haven't eaten, you don't have electricity in your house. Mountain climbing is not the next thing you think about, So you think about certain things when, in quote, life is easier, So when life is tougher, by the time you are getting off your bed, or maybe you are even driven off your bed, if we put it that way, there are 101 things that are already harassing you. You are thinking of this, thinking of that, you are less likely to think about blood donation. So I think that low income and poverty, like you asked, also connection with poverty, is the fact that we are just less comfortable. We are more worried about other things, and we will be thinking about altruistic things. So when we're more comfortable and also more enlightened, we would have more donations. I think it will rise along with those two things.
All right, now let's talk about blood group compatibility. I would like you to enlighten our viewers on the necessity of this and the impact on these when it comes to blood donation. Perhaps you can take us through the various blood groups and how important it is to adhere to the principle of blood compatibility, especially when it comes to blood donation.
Well, let me. I hope you won't mind my adapting that a little bit, because I think that we might cause more harm than good. If I try to take them through a medical class in a few minutes. So what is key and what is important is to know that there are different types. And for those who maybe are more comfortable now and they're higher class, you would know, for instance, that your car might not use just every kind of petrol. So they say petrol is petrol. No, it's not. It depends on the kind of car you're using. So some people who know, and they know, or let's say engine oil. So some people know that, look, my car, in fact, all cars have different engine oil specifications. So you have to put the right one for the best performance. So what is there is that there are 4 groups of blood. And in fact, we still have, a little more, 1 or 2 more things that you screen for in terms of compatibility. But generally, you just have to know that people have different blood groups, and it means that if you needed a top up, we will have to find the one that matches your blood, to top up your blood with. So you don't top up the engine oil in your car with just any engine oil you see. You have to get the right type. So it's the same way. I have a different type of blood in me, engine oil if you wish, maybe from what Femi has. So if both of us were lying down on the bed and we needed transfusion, they have to determine what type of blood we have, and then determine what type of top-up, your body would accept. Because if you put the wrong type of blood in, then there is what you call an adverse reaction, which means it just means that your body is going to react badly to it. and you might have serious complications from that. So that you don't want. So you want to be sure you got the right specification to put to the person. So I also said that I didn't want to go into any technicalities because that ultimately becomes the job of the health professional, not the donor or the patient. That is their job to determine and to know what you as a person, as a lay person, as a patient or whatever, can do is to go determine your blood type even now. Is to know that. Know it. You can carry a slip in your wallet with you that says your blood type. What that does is that it saves time. Okay, so if you were ever in a situation, an emergency situation, you've been robbed, trauma, somebody, was angry with you for taking their boyfriend or whatever, uh, and stabbed you, wanted to steal your latest iPhone and they stabbed you, or, you were in a road traffic accident, unfortunately. Now, it means that getting you to the hospital, I'm hoping that your wallet goes with you. Getting you to the hospital, they will try to look for anything that can help them there. And if they searched in there and they found that slip that says this is blood group O, blah, 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 then they are able to use that to quickly say, get us this type of blood for this person. Now, for the other person who they don't know, they first have to screen to know what type of blood he has. Okay, but if they can determine that this is your blood type, you already carry information about it with you, that might save them time because they may not just have a few minutes, to transfuse you with blood to save your life. And in those few minutes, they may decide that, look, let's go with the information we have on this person and let's just quickly transfuse with this because that's the only option we have. If we wait to first determine the blood group and all that this person has, he or she might pass away in that time. So that might be very helpful and that you can do. But the idea of working out the compatibility becomes the health professional's job at that point in time.
Let's look at the efforts of some countries towards increasing the safe blood that they have in their blood bank. China currently has a 98% voluntary blood donation rate. So many other countries have done well in that aspect. Cuba, Rwanda. What efforts need to be done in Nigeria to ensure that Nigeria grow its blood bank? And also, what support can be done to assist patients who would need blood in terms of being able to afford it? Currently, the rate ranges from between 1,500 to 10,000 naira, depending on the source, for a pint of blood.
Well, there are two major, not two actually. There's what you call the blood transfusion service. So there's a national blood transfusion service. There's also, in Lagos State where we are, there's Lagos State Transfusion Service. Now, all those services deal not just with providing blood itself, they also try to deal with the issues, policy issues, education issues, public awareness campaigns, just to ensure that things are better. And in Lagos State, for instance, I think not too long ago, the Lagos State government made basically a subsidy, towards blood availability, of saying that we're putting down, I think, about 6,000 or so, 6,005 for every pint of blood. So that's to improve affordability. So the government set up these agencies, National Blood Transfusion Service, State Blood Transfusion Services, just to ensure that people can get more blood, access to blood, and afford the blood when they need it. So, and also to encourage those, to ensure that those services work on the pipeline. From how do you get donors, increase the public awareness campaign and all of that. And we all have a part to play. So today, both of you now, for instance, have become advocates. So beyond the program, you should be able to say things to people and say, look, would you consider doing this? Would you consider donating every year? Would you consider donating blah, blah? So that's how it works. And in places that they achieved it, it's sustained pressure. You sustained pressure, I mean, you have to keep the message going. You have to keep putting it in front of people, keep talking about it. And then eventually, one person picks it up, two people pick it up. One day I'm going to donate. A friend says, where are you going now today? So I'm going to the blood bank. Oh, really? Are you sick? No, no, no. I want to donate blood. Really? Oh, do you have a relative? No, no, no. I just want to donate blood. I do that regularly. That person says, really? It does nothing to you. No, it doesn't. Okay. But I just do it. So that's how these things catch up. But there must be a sustained messaging about it.
All right, now let's look at the procedure that must be put in place to ensure the process of blood donation and even transfusion is safe and healthy. What is the ideal globally, and what is the practice when it comes to medical procedure?
Well, so primarily when people come in, we've talked about the psychosocial issues of it being voluntary, preferably, that gives you an index of safety. But also when people walk in to donate, they will do it almost like I called it like a mini physical, a mini routine physical check. So they're going to ask questions. They will ask you questions about yourself, from just basic questions, age and all of that, and things that to drilling down a little bit to lifestyle. Have you ever used drugs? Do you how many sexual partners and all of that? So you're trying to screen right there and then, to asking if you are sick in any form. Do you have a cold? Do you blah blah? So they go through all of that before then the blood is actually a sample of the blood is taken, not the full donation, just a sample is taken, and that sample now also you will screen. So when you take the blood, you're not going to take blood and just go send it to somebody else to be transfused. You'll have to screen that blood. So though the person has passed through everything else and all what they told you was good, but you still screen that blood. So you check for certain things. Of course, you know that you check for HIV and all that. So you check for certain things to be sure hepatitis B. Be sure that blood is not infected in any form and dangerous before you bank the blood. So again, part of that process is keeping that blood at the right temperature. If it's not going to be sent off immediately to be used, so you're going to bank that blood. It's going to be kept at the right temperature until a demand is placed for it. And that's the kind of synthesized process of what you'll expect will happen when people walk into donate blood.
All right, finally, I want to ask, on the part of the receiver, there are people who just have this aversion towards blood transfusion. And so even when the doctors advise that you need to be transfused, they still refuse to accept blood. What do you have to say to such people?
To think about why that person is refusing blood. People have their fears for certain reasons. So sometimes you are able to dispel that fear. It's based on a myth, it's based on a rumor, it's based on an observation that is wrong. Oh, they transfused my friend and then almost immediately he started shaking and he died and blah, blah, blah. So you have to know why this person, hopefully you can find out why this person is refusing the blood. And sometimes you can dispel it, like some will tell you for religious reasons. That's difficult to dispel. You try to explain, you try to tell them this, but it's difficult to dispel some reason. And there's nothing you can do about that. But if it's a reason you can actually deal with, then you take your time, find out what it is, and then deal with it, explain, and try to convince the person about the necessity. And sometimes if you are then, again, of course, even if you can't convince the person, you'll have to do your utmost best, to manage that patient without the blood. Hopefully you'll get good results. Maybe all it determines or all it means is that that person is going to have a very long hospital stay, maybe. So you might have to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks instead of 2 days or 3 days. And sometimes it's more grievous it might be more grievous consequence for it. But you do your best at the end of the day, no matter what.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oladoyin Odubanjo, who's the Executive Secretary of the Nigerian Academy of Science and also past chairman of the Lagos chapter of the Association of Public Health Physicians of Nigeria. We thank you for your time with us, providing so much enlightenment on the need for safe blood donation.
Thank you for having me.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.